presentation for student engagement for the Town and Gown Project. We're delighted to have you here tonight. My name is Mike Pate. I'm the program director for TAG Tallahassee, and this is the fifth in a series of programs that we've done, and we're looking forward to it. We have some terrific guests for you to hear about. But before that, some of you may not be familiar with the things that we've been doing with Town and Gown, so I'd like to take just a few minutes to walk through with you what Town and Gown is all about. The first question people always ask is, what is TAG? And TAG is a program that goes about trying to make Tallahassee a better place to live and work. That's the real focus of what we're trying to do. We recognize that there were opportunities for us to find ways to connect the universities to the community in positive ways, to be able to make even more good things happen in this community than that are already going on. When we do that, one of the things that has to happen is that you have to have funders. And in our case, we have some terrific funding partners. First of all, our primary stakeholders, the City of Tallahassee, Florida State University, Florida A&M University, Leon County, and Tallahassee Community College. And we are very grateful for their involvement. They have been terrific partners and have been very helpful all the way through this process, and we greatly appreciate everything that they've done. In addition to that, we've also had terrific cooperation from a group of funders who we refer to as partners that are folks who have contributed financially or in in-kind programs to the Town and Gown project. In all, there are 38 funders and stakeholders involved with this project. We wanted it to be a community project, not just a one big funder project, and we've been able to do that with a lot of folks that you see on this slide that tell you a lot about all of the folks. Oh, we're not moving.
Am I behind?
You're behind, yeah. Next one, that one. Now you can see the list of all of the folks that are with us on the project and that work with us to make this happen. There are a lot of businesses who have been willing to make contributions either financially or provided other services that we desperately needed to be able to make the program a success. One of them that's not on there that I did want to mention tonight is our friends at the Four Seasons Sheraton, who are hosting our guests from Durham tonight, and we're delighted that they have become partners with us as well, and appreciate Bo Schmitz and the staff at the Four Seasons Sheraton who have helped us out with that. We'll go to the next one. There are four phases. Excuse me. There are four phases for the TAG project, the first of which was to do some primary research to figure out what the perceptions were in the community of what the Town and Gown relations looked like in Tallahassee. The second phase of that then was to do the series of forums that we're working on right now. It's a series of 5 forums that we'll talk about. And then the third phase is the creation of an organization that will create a process for the community to have ongoing communications about Town and Gown issues, to be able to move us to that place that makes us a better place to live and work. And then the fourth and final phase will be specific projects that new organization will accomplish to show the community this is what we're doing to have a successful Town and Gown relationship between the universities and the community. In that study, the 5 areas of opportunity that we defined were communications, economic development partnerships, environmental partnerships, public safety issues, and student engagement. We've been fortunate to have several of these already completed. We did the communications partnership and had visitors from the University of Oregon and the City of Eugene come to do the communications partnership. Economic development was a presentation by the City of East Lansing and Michigan State University. The environmental partnerships were done by the University of Colorado and the City of Boulder. And public safety issues was done by Virginia Tech and the town of Blacksburg. And tonight you'll be hearing from Duke University, North Carolina Central University, and the City of Durham to talk about student engagement issues. As we move to the next slide, this one it's a little dense. But the key item on there that I want you to look at are the things that were important, because this particular slide was the resident survey that was done that talked about what the residents thought were the most important issues that we needed to deal with from a Town and Gown relations standpoint. And as you can see on here, student engagement was one of the items that was listed from the residents. And then on the next slide, you'll see a similar set of numbers from leadership, which was the second survey that we did, that also includes numbers that show that student engagement was important to them as well. So we felt like in terms of looking at that, that's how those 5 areas of opportunity were identified. It was all based on the research that we did and to get that understanding of the perceptions. The surveys themselves, the resident survey was 812 residents of Leon County. The leadership survey was 54 leaders from the community that we did a more in-depth interview with them. The next steps after tonight that we'll be working on, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at where we are on the trail of where Town and Gown is going to be going, and we'll be moving forward with that. We're now working on a draft of information about what we want that organization to look like. We have been to I've been to the last 4 conferences of the International Town and Gown Association, stealing ideas from them. So what we've done is figured out a way to try to get good ideas from other folks so that we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So the organization that we're working on is sort of a composite of some of the very positive things that we've seen from other communities and other college towns that have done some of this work in a similar way. And then the final phase will be, of course, actually doing a series of projects. We'll probably take on 3 to 4 projects in the first year of that and move that forward. And that process really starts tomorrow. After these fine folks get back on their plane for Durham, I'll start working on that, and we'll put together those next steps in the process. But I think one of the things that is always important to look at is how do the folks in the community feel about this? And I think one of the things that really struck me then and that I really liked was a statement made by the president of Florida State University, Eric Barron, who said, "This initiative will serve as an important reminder that our futures are inextricably linked and that we work best when we work together." And that really says an awful lot about what we're trying to accomplish with this whole project and the direction that we're going to try to make sure that we are working together as effectively as possible to make Tallahassee an even better place to live and work. So now I'd like to move on to be able to talk to you a little bit about the folks from Durham who are here with us. And we went through a long set of conversations with Sam Millerisi to talk about how we were going to approach this and what was going to happen. And he was commenting earlier today that it was a series of 3 phone calls, and he wondered, what in the world is this guy up to? He keeps calling me back and calling me back. And we finally got around to talking about whether they would be willing to come down here and do this, and I am ever so grateful that they were willing to put it together. And Sam, thank you for working with us to make that happen. And Lois and Tom, we're delighted to have you folks here as well. So let me begin with the introductions, and then I'll turn the program over to them. First off, my mama always taught me that it was ladies first, so I'll introduce Lois DeLoach. Lois is the Vice Chancellor of Institutional Advancement at North Carolina Central University. She oversees fundraising, alumni relations, and the NCCU Foundation. Prior to joining NCCU in 2010, Lois served as Associate Director of Corporate and Foundation Relations at Duke University, so her move was not a particularly long one. During her 20-year career at Duke, she served in several progressively responsible fundraising positions. She began her professional career as an Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Lois earned her bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in speech and hearing science from the University of North Carolina. She earned her master's degree in liberal studies from Duke in 2008. DeLoach serves on the Durham Technical Community College Foundation Board, Duke University Health System Chancellor's Community Health Advisory Board, the North Carolina Jazz Foundation Board, and the Durham Partnership for Seniors Advisory Committee. For more than 20 years, she's maintained her career as a professional vocalist, songwriter, and she specializes in jazz, blues, and spirituals. And I kept trying to figure out a way to get her to sing for us tonight, but she keeps ducking me, so we don't have a backup group, so I guess that's going to be the excuse, unless Sam and Tom do that.
Not a hobby. She's a recording artist.
Right.
We're the Blues Brothers, Tom and I.
There you go. Lois, we're delighted to have you. Welcome to Tallahassee.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Our second guest is Tom Bonfield. Tom has been the city manager for Durham, North Carolina since 2008. He's an ICMA credentialed manager since 2002. Tom's local government experience spans 35 years, including 27 as city manager in 3 different cities. Immediately prior to coming to Durham, Tom was a city manager in Pensacola, Florida, including 3 consecutive years under federal disaster declarations following Hurricanes Ivan, Dennis, and Katrina. So you know that this man has been through the mill in terms of what he's had to deal with in his job. Tom holds a BA in accounting from St. Leo University and an MBA from the University of South Florida. He's been a member of the Alliance for Innovation Board of Directors since 2001 and is currently serving as its chair. Tom serves on the Duke Medicine Chancellor's Advisory Board, the Bull City Forward Executive Committee, and is a member of the Downtown Durham Rotary Club. And Tom and his wife have 3 grown children, including one son, another Tom, who is an FSU graduate. So we're delighted to have Tom here tonight. Welcome, Tom. And our third guest is Sam Malorisi. Sam is the Director of Community Engagement for the Office of Durham and Regional Affairs at Duke University and Director of the Duke-Durham Neighborhood Partnership. With oversight of this collaboration, he is also Duke's liaison to 6 neighborhoods and the nonprofits in northwest central Durham. He works closely with Duke professional schools and departments, as well as Duke student engagement initiatives as they support the mission of Duke-Durham Neighborhood Partnerships. Sam came to Duke University in Durham in August of 1999 from South Carolina, where he'd served for 28 years in full-time church ministry. He is an adjunct member of the Duke University Religion Department and Program in Education. He received his BA in philosophy from St. Mary's Seminary and University in Baltimore and his licentiate in theology from the Gregorian University and doctor in theology from the University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome, Italy. His recreational interests are simple. He is an avid Duke intercollegiate sports fan, is a fan of the Cincinnati Reds, and he loves Tiger Woods. So, Sam, we're delighted to have you with us. Welcome to Tallahassee. At this point, I'll turn the program over to you, Sam. Thank you.
Well, I think many of you know Mike Pate and have already captured some of the enthusiasm and his love of this community, and we sure have. And we want to thank him in particular for the way in which he's ridden us hard over the last 2 days to make sure that we were introduced to the universities, the community, the school system in so many ways. So I think that we would all say right off the top that we have benefited dramatically in terms of the shared information and the best practice experiences that we've shared with him and with all of you. Thank you very much, Mike, for your hospitality and generosity. I also want to extend a word of thanks to Bill Burlow. Bill is the communication officer for TAG, and he's the only one I've ever met that's been able to get 3 busy people to do homework. Because we were asked to answer a series of questions on, and he kept pushing, have you got it done yet? So if you want to see some of the supplemental answers to questions that he raised, since he's a communications expert and a newspaper man and a reporter, go online to the Facebook and you can see what we had to say. It will supplement some of the things that we're going to be saying tonight. Besides our thank you, I would like to extend a word of thanks to my colleagues. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for accepting the responsibility to come with me to share with you some of the best practices and some of the ways in which the context of Duke Durham and NCCU Durham and Duke NCCU relations have made a difference in the ways in which these institutions work and thrive. They both accept it readily. They're both extraordinarily busy in their work lives, and I'm just grateful to them. And it gave us a chance to really spend a couple days together in a way in which we never would have before. So thank you again, both of you, for taking the time to do that. Before I turn things over to Lois, let me just say that at Duke University, the whole issue of engagement and service and social responsibility and social accountability is one of those overarching ideas that advances the mission of the university. Now, clearly, for the 2 universities in Durham, NCCU and Duke, as well as our community college, research and scholarship and academic learning are clearly at the heart of the mission. But there's been a civic reform movement that's occurred all throughout the nation, not just in Durham, but clearly touched your universities as well here in Tallahassee, that's impacted an ethos of civic involvement. And I think that both of my colleagues are going to be able to give you some sense of context for what the President said was an inextricable link between universities and the institution of our city that clearly involved our futures together. And I'm hopeful that, as you see on the map, the university, Duke University in blue, which comprises east and west campuses. In yellow, our city, and of course, NCCU. It gives you a context of where we fit within the geographical life of our city.
And Sam, yellow is just downtown. The smaller map over on the left shows the entire city.
That's
yellow is just
Tom's office right there. It's
about a 2 mile.
Yeah, it's probably 2 miles.
2 miles.
Each way.
So as the civic reform movement is bigger than just student engagement. So let me turn things over to Lois and let her speak to NCCU and its involvement with the community.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Tom. And we are thrilled and delighted to be here. You have an amazing town in a lot of ways. The people, all of the renovation going on here, all of the new projects, it's just an exciting, you can feel it. It's palpable. You can really feel the excitement in Tallahassee, and we'll have to come back when we have more time to really visit and enjoy. I want to just take a couple of minutes to give you a little background and context. Again, I bring you greetings from North Carolina Central University, also known as NCCU. We are the Eagles. Our highest priority is student success. And part of student success is engaging students in the life of the community, in the life of the state, in the life of the nation, helping them find what their place as they grow and mature. From the very beginning, NCCU, Duke, and the business community have been closely connected. Pharmacist and religious educator Dr. James E. Shepard chartered what was then called the National Religious Training School in Chautauqua for the colored race in 1909, and we opened our doors in 1910 with $25,000 from the Durham Merchants Association, which then became many later years, the Chamber of Commerce, and the first of several gifts from the Washington Duke family. When we opened opening the university, we received the 20 acres of land from Brody Duke, who was then known as sort of the black sheep of the Duke dynasty. Other gifts included our auditorium named in honor of Brody Duke's brother, Benjamin Duke. With this initial investment, NCCU quickly became a destination and incubator for scholars, intellectuals, educators, and politicians. NCCU early on established a tradition of civic leadership and participation that over time helped to erode the color line. For example, it was back in 1944 that NCCU and Duke played then what was an illegal basketball game because we were racially segregated at that time. But they played this integrated game now known as the secret game. And yes, it was the Eagles who won, 88-44. But the real loss was to Jim Crow, because that was a feat in itself, was having that game take place. The two universities have helped Durham over time earn its reputation, its contemporary reputation, as one of the most dynamic, cosmopolitan, politically progressive cities in the South. And today, NCCU is a comprehensive university. We enroll more than 8,300 students. We have about 77 undergraduate degrees, undergraduate and professional degrees. And we are a significant provider of workforce development in the region and in the state, well known for law, public service, teachers, education, nursing, business, and biotechnology. From 2007 through 2012, for example, NCCU earned earned or secured about $120 million in sponsored research. A lot of people don't realize, even right in our state, how large NCCU is and what the impact is. Last year, for example, NCCU, Duke University, and Durham-based Council for Entrepreneurial Development joined with UNC Chapel Hill and NC State, and we received a $3.6 million grant from the Blackstone Charitable Foundation to commercialize or to help commercialize research discoveries. Just an example of, again, how collaboration continues today. We have a long-standing partnership with the City of Durham, and again, as Sam said, I'm happy to have this time to spend with Tom Bonfield, someone I've admired since he arrived in Durham. For our part, we're engaged in a joint effort to address economic development and infrastructure issues, particularly those that are in close proximity to our campuses, such as water, building maintenance, and parking on residential streets, things of that nature. So far as student engagement is concerned, NCCU was the first institution in the UNC system, we're part of a 16-school system, to require undergraduate students to complete 15 hours of service to the community each semester. So that's 120 hours by graduation. Our Office of Community Engagement focuses student efforts on academic tutoring and many other and other services through about 150, working with about 150 organizations, mainly nonprofits in Durham and the surrounding area. As a result, NCCU was selected for the President's Higher Education Community Service Honor Roll for the last few years, and this year we rose to the category of national finalists, one of only 5 institutions in the country to receive this honor. And finally, as Sam just said, we will certainly answer any questions you might have, but we just want you to know that it's very genuine, our mutual commitment to working together at numerous levels to advance the best interests of our city, and particularly the best interests of our students, and preparing them for life beyond the academic walls of our campuses. Thanks. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Tom?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and I, too, am very pleased to be back in Florida. Certainly want to acknowledge some of my former Florida colleagues, Anita Favors and Vince. It's good to see you all, and it's great to be back in Tallahassee. I think the last time I was here was the 2008 legislative session before I left the following summer to move to North Carolina, and I just am amazed at how much has changed in 4 years. Just congratulations. I think that in light of the extremely challenging economic times that everyone has faced, and yes, we have faced them in North Carolina and the Research Triangle area, contrary to popular belief, what I see, the progress that I see, physical improvements, both in the city of Tallahassee and on the campuses was really remarkable, and I'm sure it's a tribute to a lot of hard work and collaboration and commitments on all of your parts. I guess I also would want to start off by saying I think it was on the plane ride down here I said to Sam, and why are we going again? What are we supposed to be doing? And we have had a really unbelievable 24 hours of learning, and I really kind of feel like we may well be taking away more than we're going to be imparting. So I'm just warning you about that. But and I came to that conclusion again after we were driving over tonight, or right before we left. I said to Sam, are you sure we have something? Why are we here again? Because it just seems like you all are doing so many terrific things around this area of community engagement, student engagement, that we have a lot to take away. But I guess the observations that I would want to share, not in a critiquing way in any way about this community, but talk about my experience in Durham over the last 4 years, and in particular the relationships that I have developed and our community has developed with Duke University and North Carolina State or North Carolina Central University, is that the interest in this student engagement is intentional. It's not just something that we talk about. It is intentional. It's intentional at the very highest levels. It is something that our Mayor William Bill Bell, is committed to. It's something that President Dick Broadhead at Duke University is committed to. It's something that the Chancellor at North Carolina Central is committed to at the highest levels, and they are very intentional about it. It's not something that gets delegated to down the pole somewhere that somebody else has to worry about it. I know that just as an example, Mayor Bell is a frequent speaker at Duke University, a frequent speaker at North Carolina Central. When he every year makes a point in his schedule to address incoming classes at the freshman orientation at both universities, incoming classes at the professional graduate programs at the universities, the faculty orientation, all of those things, he will go out of his way to make sure that he's clear about how critically important those relationships are to the city of Durham. One of the things that he traditionally speaks about when he talks to freshmen as he welcomes them to their host city for the next 4 years of their life. Certainly, it's all of the visitors and convention bureau speak about all of the great things and the experience of the town and spend your money and behave and all the kinds of things that you would expect about that conversation. But then he goes on to talk to them about the opportunity that being in Durham has presented them, in addition to just receiving a really good academic education, and that's an opportunity for civic engagement. First of all, he talks about that, and that there is this opportunity to become involved in the community in so many ways. Certainly, a lot of what I learned about what happens at your universities is very similar to that in terms of the volunteer opportunities. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to take that civic engagement, experience that civic engagement, because Durham is a highly, highly engaged community, one of the most civically active communities in the country. To experience that in any way that you kind of find your niche, and maybe you will have that opportunity to make a difference in Durham's community while you are here, during your 4 years. But maybe more importantly, you'll receive an experience that wherever you move to or live to the rest of your life, you can take that experience and make a difference in the communities that you move to from that point. He's very specific about that. At the same time, he also talks to the students about life after graduation and the hope that what they experience in Durham during their 4 years in Durham will cause them to want to stay in the community, to cause them to want to be a part of the community for what they see, what they experience, as a place to have a career, do the things that will go on the rest of their life. It's a little bit unique. We talk about Durham and North Carolina Central, but the reality is, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is 8 miles away. It's not in Durham, 8 miles away. North Carolina State University is 20 miles away. So we really have this huge kind of higher education presence that when we talk about the culture and the environment that we are trying to create in our community, in many respects, we're speaking to all of those university students. And so we want all of them to kind of experience what happens in Durham. One of our, we have great tradition of the Research Triangle Park and many, large corporate presences with, the biotech fields and all of the, we're known now as the City of Medicine because of all of the biotech and research laboratories. And certainly we want to have the students at our universities be the talent that's going to fill the needs of those employers so they don't have to go looking elsewhere for them. That's a high priority. But at the same time, we're trying to create an environment, particularly in our downtown area, that we want Durham to be known as the entrepreneurial hub of not just the Triangle, but North Carolina, as the place that if you want to be an entrepreneur, there's a place to make that happen in Durham. There are many other people who are making that happen in Durham. And then in addition, not just to being a traditional entrepreneur, we have a very significant social entrepreneur initiative that is going on in Durham as well, all geared around trying to engage the talent that is coming out of these universities that are in our community and are immediately our neighbors to the community. So I don't, in the interest of time, I don't have time to go into all those details, but if you're interested in those things, and you can Google American Underground if you want to find out about what we're doing there. Bull City Forward, Bull City Stampede, all of these programs that we have developed really successfully as a way of engaging students. Again, it's the piece about while you're here, you can learn something that you can take wherever you go the rest of your life, but maybe while you're here, you can find something that's going to entice you to stay here the rest of your life and create a place that the talent that is in so many of these great universities are here. One of the things I thought was really cool, going back to the civic engagement, kind of the volunteerism thing, this year, the Fuqua School of Business, the Graduate School of Business, very highly renowned business school at Duke University. We had the 440 first-year Fuqua Business School students spent their first 3 days at school working in the inner city neighborhood and under a program called Brush with Kindness, where they worked for those 440 students for 3 days, did nothing but paint houses, clean up yards, fix roofs, and do repairs for elderly and impoverished community folks that would not otherwise have had it done. It was an unbelievable partnership, but a great relationship building program between the community. I mean, we have many volunteer programs, I'm sure, like you all have here, and you heard my colleagues to speak about, but something about the impact of that kind of an intense effort in those 3 days got great publicity in the community, was great in building just kind of that relationship and partnership. This wasn't just a bunch of rich kids who were coming here to learn how to be rich and go somewhere else, but how they were willing to be a part of the community. So we are proud of those relationships. We have many other intentional relationships that are maybe less about student engagement with Duke and NCCU around housing and neighborhood redevelopment, economic development, around disconnected youth, around access to health care. We could probably give a whole session just on access to health care and how those two universities are providing unbelievable access to health care for many people in our community who would not otherwise have that access, and then around other things about transportation and many others. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I would be glad to, and hopefully we can engage in some Q&A after and answer questions you might have about some of the specifics. But certainly if there's need for more follow-up, we'd be glad to do that. We'd invite anybody to come up and visit us and spend some time as well. We're proud of our community, and certainly from the city of Durham, we are very proud of our relationships with our two universities. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lois. Let me conclude by giving you a little more information about Duke University. As you know, it's a major private research university, and by virtue of its being private, it's been accused of being elitist, but it gives us a flexibility in the world of civic engagement. I know you're the People's University, and we're the... But it gives us a flexibility over the years that really has been significant. I think Tom's already alluded to some of it, but a very conscious effort was made by the president and the senior staff, and I think Lois alluded to this before, that you need champions. You cannot succeed without champions allowing the civic reform movement to take root in your universities, not just partially, but permeate its culture, to create a civic ethos that's real and genuine. Back in 1996, Mayor Bell was not in office, and Duke University...
He was on the county commissioner. He was not the mayor. He was on the county commission.
I'm sorry, but he was off county commission.
Oh, at that time, yeah.
Because he was involved in the merger between the African American, the public schools, and they voted him out.
Right.
Yep.
Very courageous leader, by the way, Mayor Bell is. But anyway, he had a couple years off, and the university hired him,
That's right.
as with Sandy Ogburn, who was in city council, to do a master plan of how Duke should strategically work with the community. Now, we had a discussion with FSU this afternoon about the difference between depth and breadth. I mean, Duke was doing its thing in the Gothic wonderland in the forest, and the city was doing its thing, and NCCU was doing its thing, and yet there was a sense that Duke needed to recommit itself to the community in which it lived in a way that was real. So it moved away from breadth, where everybody was doing whatever they felt was appropriate in the many schools and departments, but nobody knew what they were doing. There was no strategic theme. And after the report that Bill Bell and Sandy Ogburn produced, after they listened carefully to the community's voice, a partnership was created, or collaborative, called the Duke-Durham Neighborhood Partnership. I manage that today on the shoulders of many others that were before me. And this partnership is basically a social construct that facilitates conversations, the building of trust, and the ability to channel resources. In fact, I might say this, Lois was in the development office at Duke University at the time, and we still sort of regret that NCCU stole her from us. But Lois was very helpful to our office in channeling money from the Duke Endowment, from Kellogg Foundation, to help us in after-school programs, affordable housing, a whole range of issues that are very common to your experience here. At Duke University, we live in a community that has a lot of disparities. Economic, social, educational, the whole range of the underclass and the overclass, and both within the Latino, the African American, and the larger white community. And it was very powerful when the university made a commitment, what I call a passionate yes, that gave us the ability to say no. Because everybody was coming to both universities and to the city, for that matter, saying, I have a project, fund this and fund that. We were able to say, I'm sorry, you're not within the friendly confines, all that blue right around the neighborhoods, the 12 neighborhoods that surround the campuses and the medical center are the very campuses, are the very neighborhoods that we have a relationship with schools, the neighborhood associations, the faith-based organizations, the churches, the nonprofits. All of them, in a sense, had a relationship with us that gave them access to our faculty, to our students, our staff, and even funding opportunities. So that partnership has lived. And historically, in 2008, my vice president, and there's a report in the back if you wish to look at it, we moved away from the Office of Community Affairs and created the Office of Durham and Regional Affairs. And for the first time ever at Duke, we have a vice president sitting at senior leadership table with the word Durham in his title. Makes a big difference. And so now my office, the Duke-Durham Neighborhood Partnership, is a core function of a larger mission, a larger commitment. And I know that my vice president, Phil Wynn, meets weekly, monthly?
At minimum monthly.
With our city manager. So that gives you some ways in which the strategic commitment of the university to the community takes a form that's very practical and very concrete. And one of the last things I want to mention is that one of the signature events that won a national award is what is called Duke Engage. I think I wrote about it for Bill and his Facebook questions. But Duke Engage is a well-funded opportunity for Duke students to do summer immersive travel and experience with approvals anywhere in the world. Every summer we have 450 Duke students that select to go in a variety of different places with faculty advisors or staff support to engage in an experience of benefiting the community wherever they're wanted and requested, including Durham and beyond. It's been a phenomenal success, and I was joking with someone recently that some of these students that are coming to Duke say that's one of the reasons why they've come, and it's not the basketball team, which is highly unusual for, Duke's image in the community. But I do want to say that Duke Engage has become a very significant sign of the way in which we're trying to communicate to our students that you can't leave campus simply with head words, head knowledge, but you need to find a way to translate that academic curricular experience in a very lived reality of your service in a very conscious way as part of social change in the world in which you live. So we're pleased with that. We're also struggling with how to keep that priority moving and dealing with some of the tensions involved and why are they getting all this money and not other possible efforts in the community. But I'm really pleased that this particular signature event still stands as a statement of our life together. In conclusion, again, I would like to say thank you to all of you for your hospitality and for teaching us about what you're doing here at FAMU and FSU, and we look forward to coming back again at some point and seeing the results of TAG Tallahassee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam and Lois and Tom. We appreciate your comments. And what we're going to do now is open the floor for questions. We do have a microphone here at the front. Since this is being recorded, we would appreciate if you would come to the microphone before you speak so we can make sure we get what you say so that we'll know what you said later on. And then the folks will be able to respond. And Lois asked me earlier if I was going to start out with a question, and I said no, but I lied. I do have one, and it's really a question of sort of expanding. Tom, you talked about Bull City Forward. Can you all talk a little bit more about that in depth and tell us just a little bit more about the details of how that program works?
Well, Bull City Forward is actually the social entrepreneur initiative that the city and the chamber, Duke University, have established in their offices are in downtown Durham. That was funded with some startup money from each of us for the last several years, but it is all related to engaging the students who want to pursue one, the ability to make a difference in community, but also the ability to make a living, and basically to teach them how to start and run a business that has a social cause behind it. Something that we feel, I tell the students and I go and speak to them, I kind of have an ulterior motive in my mind about why I'm so passionate about this and involved in this is because I know that the city can't do everything. We can't afford to do everything. And the more that we can teach students and young people who have a passion about making a difference in the world and the community and make a living at the same time, it's going to take some relief off our shoulders. And that's what I believe in. And so it's something that I guess is about 3 years old now, and has started to become very organic. I made a comment to somebody today that students tend to want to have a place to convene, want to have a place to communicate, to learn, but at the same time they don't want to be too organized. And so we feel like this movement is really one that's going on around the country, but has really started to take hold in Durham. At the same time, we have a very similar program that is partnered with the business community, which is the entrepreneurial piece, the truly entrepreneurial piece to this. It's called American Underground. It is a project that basically provides just again the opportunity for young entrepreneurial folks to have very cheap incubator space, access to resources, venture capital, those kinds of things, and to get into to starting businesses. It's mostly around the technical high-tech fields, apps, gaming, those kinds of things. One of the kind of cool things that the city and the chamber and the business community has done for the last couple of years is a project we call Bull City Stampede, and that's one that we do actually a national competition for folks to propose businesses to us, and we pick anywhere from 10 to 15 of those, and we provide them free office space downtown. We provide them free access to legal help, to consulting about capital, to consulting about starting businesses, and at the end of that 90-day period, they're kind of on their own. We've had about a 40% success rate of businesses that were started as a result of that actually staying downtown. We're in our third cycle of that. But again, it's about creating, our drive to create the buzz about entrepreneurship, starting businesses in Durham, in particular downtown. For any of you who have been to Durham, Durham in the Triangle is kind of the edgy place, and it's where, quite frankly, most of the young people would rather be. It's affordable. It is a place that has kind of worked on creating a culture of being able to have fairly easy access for living purposes, but also work and entertainment and all those kinds of things. So they've been very successful. In particular, the entrepreneurial piece. I mean, we are continually running out of space because of the interest and the demand.
And I would also add it's very inclusive. Although NCCU wasn't necessarily a founding sponsor, they've really gone to great lengths to make sure that NCCU students, working whether it's through the School of Business or through other areas, have been a part of that. And so it's been just very, very successful.
Ms. Favors, before you say anything, let me say thank you to you. You and your staff are hosting us tonight. This is Anita Favors Thompson, the city manager of Tallahassee, for those of you who might not know her, and I can't imagine no one does. But thank you so much for being our host tonight. We really appreciate you having us here and appreciate the work that you and your staff have done to allow us to be able to be here to do this tonight.
Thank you, Mike. And welcome again.
Thank you.
We're very, very pleased to have you here and to have the opportunity to learn from you, as well as we are always delighted to hear that you've learned from us as well. I have a question. Let me say this first. Tom Bonfield and I go way back. He said that we don't want to say we're old friends, but we are way back friends. And we do go way back to his time in Florida. And the last time I actually spoke to Tom was when Hurricane Ivan had hit Pensacola, and I called him immediately to try to see if we could help provide some assistance, and I could not get him for 2 days, not cell phone, not any phone, whatever. And of course, that was pretty traumatic, and we finally did catch up and get that done. But wanted to say thank you again for being here today. I have a question, and I think, Sam, this question is for you. And maybe there's some history there that everybody can tell me a little bit about. Was there an incident or several incidences or something, an impetus that created your job, that helped create your job? What was going on? What was the history that made the community decide the time is now to do this thing?
Good question. I think I was part of the reorganization, and from what I gather in terms of the history, there was a conscious attempt by the senior administration to refocus, reorient the Duke-Durham relationship. I think one of the mutually beneficial issues at the time was the issue of crime and safety. Two of the communities, two of the neighborhoods, two areas that surround Duke University are low income.
Forest and Durham.
And there was the perception and the reality of crime, gangs, and drugs in Walltown and in southwest central Durham. Clearly, I think the administration understood that we benefit from partnering with those communities, since they, as Tom earlier mentioned, was concerned. These communities came to us with this master plan with Bill Bell and said, we're concerned about housing. affordable housing, not rental housing. We want home ownership. Can you help us with that? We want access to health care. You're a big medical center? What about a clinic? Disconnected youth, especially African American males. We have schools. We're a major educational institution. Why can't our students be involved with the Durham Public Schools and providing opportunities, if they so wish them, in the classroom to assist in that way? And I think that was the impetus early on. But when Nan Cohan arrived, the first woman president of Duke University arrived, John Burness drove her around Walltown, one boarded up house after another. And he says, President Cohan, let's think of a way in which this university can benefit from partnering with these communities. So I think that was the impetus there. The impetus, I think, that occurred around the creation of the Durham and Regional Affairs Office occurred with the strategic planning process that occurred in 2008, coupled with the lacrosse scandal. But I think both of those have been part of the fuel that led the university to a deeper, more concentrated, targeted approach. And before that, it was unfocused and not very visible. And you know, we were, you know, a smart regional university that was perceived by the African American community as being somewhat in the forest and arrogant.
Yeah, and I think the other key piece there was working there at the time and have been part of the community for a long time. It's something Sam touched on that I cannot emphasize enough, and that was that finally it was an opportunity for the community to say, here is what we want and need. You know, so it was, the whole focus was to work with the community, not to go in and do something for the community, right? And not that approach, oh, we know what you need, we're just going to, you know, it really was a conscious, it was a different model to really engage the community in painful ways, and some of it was painful conversations to get to a point to begin to build some trust. But it was listening to say, yeah, we want a clinic and this is why we want it, but not for Duke to go off and say, here's what we're going to give you.
I mean, the power imbalance is extraordinary. I mean, Duke University's, because tobacco's gone and textiles are gone, and I think Tom alluded to the fact that Research Triangle Park contains all the major corporations, but their hearts in all places internationally, not just in Durham. And we're left with NCCU. We and the city government and the two universities are left. And of course, with the medical center at Duke, we're the largest employer in the community. And that gives you a power balance that makes it difficult for people to say, we trust you. So I think we made major strides over the years. And the difficulties that we run into, I think we at least have the opportunity when there's party houses and traffic mitigation issues and ranges of zoning. I mean, we have some really hot battles, and sometimes the university makes mistakes by stepping into it without consulting. So never do that. I'm sure you do.
I want to thank you guys on behalf of Florida State for coming. You've been thoughtful and challenging ambassadors, so thank you. You know, the lacrosse scandal, we talked a little bit about that last night. I know that you were placed in an incredible position around that. And, you know, I know that it must have been very painful, but a lot of deep lessons may have come from that. And I just wonder if you can maybe speak to that, some of the things that you learned, you know, in that spotlight.
And you can join in too with me, Lois, since you were with us during that experience. I think one of the first things that we learned, I learned in the work of community engagement and community relations, was the fact that the decision made 10 years earlier about this focused, targeted approach saved our bacon. Because those neighborhoods around us that normally would have been right there, because it was a firestorm. I don't know if you remember the white heat of attention that we received, and it was so sad. It wasn't just sad for Durham or for NCCU. It was sad for the city. I mean, the rest of the nation looked upon us as if we were, I don't know, some ghetto in Soweto or something. It was just awful, the way in which we were portrayed as a community. And of course, you know, our president is still under siege from the alumni that believes that they threw these young men under the bus. But as I told you today, earlier, that the prosecutor was rogue. And everybody thought that he had information that obviously wasn't there. Be that as it may, in terms of legal and all that, what we learned was that the relationships that we established with the community in many ways were so valuable that it just enforced why it was valuable, that we're linked with the community in which we live. We're part of the city of Durham. Secondly, I think it gave another impetus because it was such a serious, perfect storm of discontent between genders and races and the whole issue of sexuality and private schools and public schools. I mean, a whole range of issues that it really forced the university to rethink its culture, its campus culture. So I don't know if you remember, we went through a whole series of campus culture conversations, documents that were provided, changes that were made, and it was interesting because the university purchased 4 houses in Trinity Park to help eradicate some of these gathering places for Duke students. Duke students are allowed to live off campus only in their senior year. And they would go to these landlords would buy property, and what's the city zoning law? 3 per house, or supposed to be. And they end up being gathering spots for parties, and sometimes these parties got out of control and were really serious violations of noise and violations of people's personal property. So Duke bought the property in the hope they would eradicate that, and in many ways it moved it to different places. But one of those houses it's purchased was that house that became the centerpiece of the lacrosse incident. So those are a couple learning experiences that we picked up.
And I agree. I mean, I wasn't here then, but I really believe that, you know, a lot of people misunderstand and think all of this relationship between the university and the city started at Duke lacrosse, or unfortunately a year later we had, 2 horrible homicides, one student at UNC, one a Duke grad student.
By the same man.
By the same individual. But the fact of the matter is that the relationships really go back to, for sure, the 90s, and had that not happened, who knows where things would have ended up.
Yeah, and I'd only add, I don't want to put our friend Rosalind Fuse Hall on the spot because she was in Durham and at Central at the time. And I think the way leadership responded made a huge difference. And at the time, Chancellor Ammons helped to calm a lot of fear and really helped to contain and anger, and working with President Broadhead, and it took a lot of, but because we had some relationships, we had much more of a relationship than people knew. There was just many more deeper relationships than people knew. So I think you can't play down that piece of it.
But we had great difficulty getting that word out. I must say that. Great difficulty.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rosalind Fuse Hall, and I'm actually a dual citizen of both Durham and Tallahassee.
That's right.
I live 3 weeks out of the year. Every 3 weeks I'm in Durham, and the other times I'm here. I'm chief of staff at Florida A&M University, and in my former life I was executive assistant to the chancellor at North Carolina Central University during the Duke lacrosse incident. And I do agree with Lois is that a lot of people don't know, and Bill Bell was also part of that triumvirate of leadership that made a difference in how those communities got through that awful tragedy, because immediately those 3 men got together for breakfast and talked about how they were going to manage that situation, how they were going to communicate with each other, how they were going to have solidarity among themselves, with the press and with the media. And before they did anything, they worked together and talked with one another and consulted. So the city would know what was going to happen, the universities would know what was going to happen, and the staffs got together more often than probably had happened in a long, long time. Not only that, but the students also, there was room made for the students to come together. Our students to go to Duke for forums, Duke students to come to Central for forums, and that started developing some relationships. So my question would be, as a result of that, and our city now, Tallahassee, is undergoing a similar kind of scrutiny by the intense situation surrounding the death of a student related to hazing. And we all know that that's something that occurs on all of our campuses. Can you speak a little bit more, because I don't think this community yet has come together to say this is a tragedy that affects our community, not just one individual school, but this affects our community. And if we don't rally around and show support and be collaborative in the support that we're providing, it's going to hurt our community. Can you just speak a little bit more to that?
I think from the experience we had with lacrosse and the experience from those deaths at the graduate student and Eve Carson, which just, it's still to this day just shakes me up even to think about that young woman being murdered and dragged around. I think it's really important that the community at large not blame institutionally, if that makes any sense, because we're so easy to do that.
Point being.
Institutions are a lot easier to blame than individuals. And so for Duke to be tarred with the brush of you're a racist, sexist, privileged. Oh yeah, I forgot about privilege. Thank you. Privileged white university, and to get stereotyped with that, and to have these young men go through that gauntlet of shame that they went through. I think you're correct. I really believe that as the facts came out, there was a sense of relief, obviously, by the community at large. I know some people took delight in seeing, Mr. Duke on his knees, but I think overall the community was grateful and rallied around the fact that we are a community, and that when one institution is violated, we need to be, we all are, in together.
We are, and I think even at another level for us at NCCU and for us as an individual, you look at what is my part in either perpetuating stereotypes, not reaching out and trying to embrace other people whom I wouldn't. And I think the most important thing you can do is to provide forums for people to talk through differences and stop being so fearful of each other, whether it's through the village voice you have here, Village Square, to not, these are painful conversations. But you have to work through that pain. You may not resolve it, but we have to stop being afraid of each other. That's easy for me to say, because in some ways, people, I have lived in all of these worlds, so to speak, right? And for some folks, again, it's amazing to me the number of my colleagues and friends who still do not go to events on NCCU's campus. It's still perceived by some people to be in a dangerous part of town, right? Because these are stereotypes that they have in their heads, and these are people who often think that they are progressive and liberal and open-minded people. But we in some ways, and bringing it back to students again, we have to model what we are trying to get these students to see. Right? We're saying to them, go out and engage with the community, go out and engage with the world, but are we doing that? And I don't mean in some artificial way, in a genuine way. How are you doing that? It's so easy to get trapped in these silos, whether it's within your workplace or your faith community or whatever it is. But so I think it really comes down to, in a lot of ways, to that as well. Really finding constructive ways, and I'll just mention a couple of ways in which we're trying to make sure our students begin to interact even more. A lot of it's through sports activities. For example, this weekend we're going to do the Bull City Gridiron Classic. NCCU plays Duke this weekend, and football, right. In football this weekend, and it's a big deal, and the chamber has been really on board, and we had a big luncheon to kick it off, and the coaches were there, and the exciting thing is we get a number of our students, a good percentage of our students are actually come out of our Durham feeder schools. So there's a football player from NCCU and a football player from Duke, both who attended Hillside High School, and so we're really playing this effort as an opportunity for our students to get together in a sports sort of atmosphere. Another one that we mentioned in the interview was the Million Meals, where our students get together as part of their day of Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service to package meals together, and it's something that they've really taken off into doing. They do it with Southern High School and Rotary's involved, and so they're intentional ways that we make sure that students come together. Even simple things, for example, this weekend we have a couple of concerts. Duke has a couple of concerts where they're offering the same discount student rate to NCCU students that they offer to Duke students, and vice versa. So just looking for ways that doesn't take a lot, but you're being intentional about, and it's more often than not now when I'm in a setting when somebody will say, "Did we invite Duke? Do we have our Duke students?" Whether it's a political thing, we've had a number of political things on campus. Students certainly have them on campus, different parties, different views, and they're always careful to make sure that they get the Duke student leaders invited. We've had one event this past fall, co-sponsored by the NCCU Museum of Art and the Duke National Museum of Art, where the students spend the first half of the evening. We had similar exhibitions, photography exhibitions. So they spend the first half of the evening at Duke, and then they get on the bus and they switch and they come to the other campus. And so, you have a lot of students from Central who wouldn't ordinarily go to Duke, or vice versa. And so there are some intentional things we're doing, and we certainly are trying to facilitate things that are more organic as well.
Well said.
And while the next question's coming up, Roz, congratulations on you got some nice headlines in the newspaper the last day or two with the Board of Governors passing along the graduation focus program, and the FDLE not finding anything wrong on the. Yeah, that was wonderful news. Glad to see that. Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk in a little more detail about retention of students after they graduate, what the Durham area looked like before all these intentional programs were launched 10 or 12 years ago in terms of retention, and what kind of success. I mean, it sounds like these programs you've described are great. Have you measured the success in terms of retention? And if you could talk a little bit about that.
I don't have any data really to back up other than my own anecdotal. I'm not sure if my colleagues do either. But that's a question, because I know that's an important theme of yours for TAG Tallahassee, and it's something that we probably were going to bring back with us to investigate. But I do know it's interesting because Duke, as you know, as a national private university, draws on the range of international and national students that meet the requirements for admission. Unlike Florida State and FAMU and North Carolina Central and North Carolina State, I mean, there's a requirement that there's a requirement of percentage of in-state students.
85%.
Therefore, it's a little harder for us to measure what I would call impact of those that stay behind to work within the triangle. But it's been interesting to me, anecdotally at least, that they love it. They really get to know and love Durham, and many make their homes here, go off to graduate school, and want to come back. So, but to answer your specific question, I really don't have any data to support that.
Yeah, and we have some data, and quite frankly, we're not expecting that a high percentage of students from Duke University are going to stay in Durham. or North Carolina or North Carolina Central or any I heard somebody talk about, I think from, maybe your goal was 20 or 40%. Well, if it is, that's great. That's probably not really ours. I mean, we're trying to create the environment that, is going to be conducive not just for people to stay. Obviously, we have some terrific, significant employers that we want to make sure there's a talent pool that ideally can be filled with students, from the Triangle. But at the same time, we also know that and we do have some more than anecdotal evidence about, business startups that came from really smart kids in one of these schools that have been really successful, that have grown up and created very large employment bases and diversified the economy. I mean, the two that come to mind actually are not, there's many others in the medical side, but I mean, two I can speak specifically about that are in Durham. One is a company called Quintiles, which is the largest medical pharmaceutical testing laboratory in the world. That was founded kitchen table and some students at UNC Chapel Hill. That's now located in Durham. And the other one is I'm thinking of the LED light company.
Oh, yeah.
Creed Corporation, also not founded by a Durham student. That was actually founded by a North Carolina State University engineering student. But we had the culture and the place where they could make that happen. And these are now huge, thousands of employee places. So if you say, oh, well, that's only two people out of how many graduated?
Right.
Well, so that's why we're trying to create that culture that can become an economic part of the economic engine of the region.
And one of the smaller indications of this success of retention is nonprofits. A Duke student formed a group called Student U.
Right.
His name's Dan Kimberg. And he's committed. He's committed to stability. He loves Durham, wants to stay in Durham, is committed to the students of the community, and has worked out an incredible partnership with the Durham Public Schools, raised thousands of dollars, brings in students from NCCU, from Duke, North Carolina, primarily those three universities, and they teach middle schoolers, 6th, 7th, and 8th, for 6 or 7 weeks in the summer, not only to deal with what I call summer slippage or summer loss for education, but to prepare them for the next year's educational programs. It's phenomenally successful. I don't know how he does it, but it is one of those students that stayed behind, saw the need, created a nonprofit, and has connected all these universities.
Social entrepreneur, that's another example.
So my question would be, what is the motivation or rationale behind retaining a higher percentage of local graduates versus being a location that any graduate would want to come to? So you know what I'm saying? So is there... One of the reasons why Durham is so exciting right now, you have the Duke and the NCCU and the UNC Chapel Hill, but you have the UVAs and the Harvards and the Yales and the Howards and the Hamptons, and it's becoming a hub that young people, and with not just young, but this vibrant group of people who are very socially minded, they want to live here. So I'm not saying it's not a worthy goal. I'm just wondering what does that measure for you? I wouldn't get caught up in terms of the percentage,
as I would be concerned about the environment and the culture.
Right. Yes. Well said.
It's possible people pass through here as much as other places. They come here for the school, and that's how they sort of.
Steve.
Okay. Yeah.
So that might be part of it.
Bringing in a little bit of an alumni perspective, my name's Leslie Milley. I'm Director of Alumni Relations for the Florida State University College of Business. So my question to you is, how much have you leveraged your local alumni association in Durham to engage students back to the community? Because I know sometimes students might not be as comfortable with reaching out to a community organization, but they do tend to be a lot more comfortable with alumni. So have you used those tactics or have any experience with that?
Well, in our case, alumni relations falls under my umbrella, and we tap as Vice Chancellor for advancement. So we use every opportunity possible to engage alumni. To say that there's some formal approach, not necessarily so. There's no formal program, but we typically use alumni. That's one of our first go-to groups when we are trying to get efforts off the ground.
We take advantage of local alumni for boards, commissions. We have a local alumni we have a national advisory board for the Office of Durham Regional Affairs. And we've also called upon alumni that have formed what I call Stooks social action projects. I'm not sure if this is social entrepreneurism, but some of the coursework out of public policy in particular and heart leadership, they have these ideas that end up being sort of compelling, and they want to see them come to fruition. One is a mentor project called the Girls Club, and recently the founder one was African American woman named Venus Wilder. She's now living in Florida, so she's a doctor in Miami, and Julia Hamilton, who is in San Francisco working for Mr. Google. They came together to found this mentorship and worked with our middle school African American girls for self-esteem and a whole curriculum that's developed with the Emily Krzyzewski Center. So it's really kind of neat to be able to connect with, and that's why it's important for your office and your civic engagement office is to stay connected to those leaders. So you want to keep them connected to what they produce so that they can not only show interest but also help fund, to be honest. I teach a house course at Duke called the Durham Giving Project, and we've been able to sustain that for 10 years. With new leadership every year, and I think that's one of the gifts of having an office that makes sure that what I call the slippage over summer and fall break and all these breaks that we have in college, that someone's around to hold people, say, have you given us the syllabus? Do you need any assistance? So these programs can continue to thrive. And last year we had help from one of Tony Brown's classes to actually document. We got a list of all the students that took this course from 10 years ago. And now we're going to enlist them to be volunteers in their own communities, as well as help fund and match dollars for the distribution of their giving circle.
So these are alumni of a course. Like they took the course, they graduated, and these are alumni that you've managed to...
Now, I could not have been able to be successful at that unless I had help from these other Duke students who had a course that took on and helped me go to the registrar's office. It was like a research forensic detective to be able to make sure that we were able to get those names and addresses. And that's your job, because I mean, as alumni, you got to keep all those databases clean, and that's hard stuff.
Good evening. I had a question regarding, I know you mentioned a couple of your programs as far as the American Underground and Bull Durham, and one of the things with engagement is really trying to get awareness out to those students regarding that these programs do exist. And I know we joke a lot in my office about, with my colleagues that's within my age group, about this fear that really exists when you're in school. When you're in undergrad, there's this fear that exists that and here in our community, it's, you know, Tennessee Street and in certain parts that you don't know other part of the community really exist. And I know, for example, my first interaction ever, because I lived on campus, so it's interesting to hear about Duke and the fact that you don't get to live off campus until you're a senior, because I lived all 4 years on campus, actually. So my very, very first interaction with the city was when I got a speeding ticket from TPD. And that was the only one. But other than that, yeah, I did. I was coming from Atlanta. I didn't realize that, you know, the speeding limit had changed. But anyway, So it's interesting to find out, how do you get the word out as far as that these programs do exist? I mean, I know especially now with young people, social media is big, and I don't know how long the programs have been around to the point where they may know that they exist already. They've become so popular that people know American Underground is out there, people know that Durham, but how is that word getting out to the students?
So there is a lot of social media. The faculty are very involved as well. Faculty are very aware. There's opportunities for students. It's an open, American Underground is an open campus. You could show up in Durham tomorrow morning and you could walk in and go anywhere you want to go in American Underground and see what's going on. Nobody would stop you. It's a very open environment. It's not, go through the metal detector, who are you kind of thing, need a name tag. And so there's just this culture about that. And so from the university standpoint, one, the faculty know about it. The faculty are involved in it. The business community certainly knows about it. A lot of social media, and it has definitely taken on a life of its own. So American Underground has been up and running for about 3 years now, as has Bull City Forward. And again, both of those are kind of bursting at the seams, and they're looking for additional space, and we're about ready to open kind of a satellite version of American Underground more in the downtown area. Right now it's in downtown, it's just on the southern end of downtown, but so it's pretty well known.
Yes.
Okay, I think we probably got time for one last question. Is anybody out there that wants to ask one? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sandra Manning, and I work with the City of Tallahassee in our utilities area. Can you speak to, you said that, I think, Sam, some of the homes were boarded up around the Duke area. Can you speak to how that has changed today and how you also dealt with the gang violence in that area?
That's a mouthful. Thank you. Affordable housing, if there's any one issue that all three of us can speak to with authority, is the way in which we've addressed that particular issue. Now, Duke's not in the business of housing, obviously. But it understood right away, if this neighborhood partnership was going to work and if we were going to be responsive at all to the community's wish for housing that was affordable, that we need to play a part. We made, over the last 15 years, close to $16 million worth of no-interest loans to self-help credit union. You ever heard of self-help? It's a powerful force in the city of Durham's revitalization. Mm-hmm. Martin Eakes is the founder. Mm-hmm. At any rate, self-help became the agency that took the money, land banked the property. Mm-hmm. They began first in Walltown with actually building the properties. Mm-hmm. Then it moved to, they land banked in southwest central Durham to allow for the local developers to buy those properties at a discount because of the Duke dollars that were no interest. Habitat, mm-hmm. the community land trustees, which is a unique model of affordable housing, Builders of Hope, Housing for New Hope.
A number of nonprofits. But the point is, it's about affordable housing, but it's about the consequence of not doing something about dilapidated housing. Was certainly Duke's interest. Mm-hmm. Duke's interest was the negative impact in the surrounding neighborhoods of what was happening if they didn't get involved. The city's interest was that, mm-hmm. but also the opportunity that it created to bring about affordable housing in those neighborhoods.
And a lot has happened in those two neighborhoods where Walltown's a different place. Mm-hmm. And it's not gentrified. And I think we're really proud of the fact that this community has partnered with the university in a way that has overcome historic divisions. Mm-hmm. But I think, Tom, why don't you speak as a last comment, really, is about the South Side project. That's pretty amazing.
Our current project is one that we call South Side. It's a neighborhood that's not immediately adjacent to Duke University.
This is part of the expansion of our role.
It's actually much closer to
where this is?
North Carolina Central University. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a project that has had a history of low investment, was created with the thing that happened in so many cities around the country a freeway that went through and divided a neighborhood, and for the last 45 years has just gone into a further and further spiral. The city has taken a major commitment to do a redevelopment that includes both a mixed income rental and mixed income housing approach. Duke has been an active partner with us, as has North Carolina Central, to provide extending some of the loans to acquire. I think to date the city purchased 70-something houses on the area that we're going to be building the mixed income rental, and that's a tax credit project. And then we've purchased, self-help through Duke has got about 100 homes, and we just closed on about 70 of those that we're going to go back in and basically, redevelop the neighborhood, but in a very mixed income approach, and it's one that is going to benefit the community, benefit North Carolina Central, and the one of the cool things that we hope to work out through a partnership with Duke is that we're going to, in essence, build a Duke affinity component in that neighborhood, that Duke employees who meet certain income criteria, not everybody that works for Duke.
This is a very unique project.
Makes the kind of money. I mean, we have many employees that work for Duke that, quite frankly, are going to be 60% AMI kinds of situations. And so, through a partnership between the city and Duke, we are going to provide forgivable loans with the thought that if we can, our target is at least 25 Duke employee families will go in and be the 25 folks on this block as a way of trying to recreate this neighborhood, but come up with enough critical mass that people have confidence enough to make an investment.
Yeah, universities have done housing for faculty and staff, but this is one of the first I've ever heard of where university actually is going to provide forgivable upfront and after 5 years, right, a full $10,000 forgivable loan to low-income employees in order to buy their first home. And with the subsidies from the city, right, it's going to be a great deal. I hope it works.
So we'll keep an eye on that one.
Yeah.
We do have a plan, and it's just beginning right now.
Tom, if you didn't understand why you were here before, and you may still not, but I can assure you we appreciate the fact that you guys have been here. Thank you so much. This has been very interesting, very helpful, and a little eye-opening for all of us, I'm sure. Please join me in thanking our guests for being with us tonight. Let me make note of a couple of things. One is Liz Joyner has been sitting over here and looks like she's playing games and is on Facebook. She's not.
Tweeting.
She wanted me to make sure that everybody knew that she's live tweeting from this event tonight to keep up with the folks from the Village Square, and we're delighted that you're doing that. Thank you so much for.
I also have lots of links to what you all talked about that I put up while I went, and so they'll be on Twitter, and we'll put them on our blog tomorrow as well.
Does anybody know the score of the Duke FSU women's soccer game? It's going on right now. The number 1, 2 teams in the nation. Anybody know? I mean,
don't know. Leslie, of all people, you should know.
I was actually very briefly just checking Facebook to try to find the score, and
Be about 15 minutes left in the game.
At any rate, again, thank all of you for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate everything that you've done. Anita, to you and your staff and the staff at WCOT, thank you folks for everything that you've done to make this possible. We'll look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.
Good job. Absolutely.